But as soon as you start talking to your service area by thousands of people and you're hitting them once a day with a message that is catchy and interesting, that's how you start getting more customers, and that's how you grow interest and trust inside of the market.
Welcome to the Art of Kaizen for Entrepreneurs, growing 1% everyday podcast.
Hello and welcome to the Art of Kaizen for Entrepreneurs, where we discuss how to grow 1% every day. Today, we're talking with Tyler Williams, owner of Mammoth Marketing for Plumbers. Tyler has developed a unique way to advertise plumbers to truly separate them from their competition and ensure consistent growth in their companies. Thank you, Tyler, for joining us.
You're welcome. I'm happy to be here.
Sweet, man. I always get super excited about individuals like yourself that hop on these podcasts and they're animated and they have emotion. It means they really do care about the business they created and what they do to service the world today. So can you give us a little bit of an overview of kind of the business that you have and how you initially developed it?
Yeah. So I've got a weird squirrely story. So about 2004, I took a job at an agency. Like, I always enjoyed creative work. I've always enjoyed messaging and storytelling, right? So I ended up taking a job at an agency fresh out of high school when I didn't really know what I wanted to do. And I just became their production guy. And this is a small town agency. There was like 5 of us all total. And basically they're like, just do the stuff, make the stuff so we can buy the media, right? And so I just jumped right in. I was like, sweet, Photoshop, websites, radio ads. I wrote so many radio ads. And then the thing that I really wanted to do was TV ads. So they had a camera, I didn't. And that's where I started. Then I went freelancing, kind of floated around a little bit. That agency went through some changes, and I landed at a place called Mammoth Advertising in 2008. And that is the origin of my agency, basically. Because it's these walls that I came to since 2008. And in 2015, I bought it from the previous owner. And he was like, I want to retire. And I was like, I just had twins. I do not want to retire. I cannot retire. And so anyway, he kind of nurtured me along he saw me as his exit. So I bought the agency from him and changed the name because nobody knows how to spell Mammoth, and changed it to Mammoth Marketing. And then we blasted statewide. Like, I really made an effort on like, okay, cool. I don't want to just be a Fairbanks, Alaska marketing. For those, yeah, we're in Alaska. I want to go statewide. So it was like Fairbanks and Anchorage. And then we would, advertise to some of the smaller communities, which are very tiny in Alaska. But then at around 2020, I had worked with my brother's company, started it from scratch. Like, he started it from scratch. And it was one of the few times where I'm coming in on the ground floor, right? Most companies, when they hire a marketing agency, they're already a little bit into things, or they're like, where they're second or third sometimes. And so with this one, it was like, okay, he came to me, he's like, I don't know how to do marketing. I was like, all right, cool. Just listen to me and give me creative control. So, and he was like, whatever, I got to figure out business stuff. So we grew his plumbing company to basically take over the town. And he just sold it about a month ago or so, and exited that so he can start another business outside of Alaska where there's a little bit more room to grow. But it went so well that I was like, well, screw it. Let's do plumbers. Let's just do this more, because we were so fractured by doing a bunch of different, like, learning the ins and outs of every little business. And I got into this to do creative work, right? And so I really wanted to hone and craft the messages, and it's really hard to do that if you're doing it for each individual client to the quality bar that I want. And so I saw that as my gateway to doing better work for more people by being able to say, this is the message, let's go reskin this for someone else and tweak it. So
I love that. So you niche down into plumbing because of the success that you've had with the previous business, and that allowed you to flourish in what you absolutely love, which is the creative aspect. So do you find that to be the biggest problem in most of the industries that you work with, is the lack of successful creative, or the lack of, let's say, unique creative? Everyone seems to have the same free consultation and free pitch, but there's so much more that can be done there. And it seems like you really want to dive into that more. Do you find that to be the biggest problem with most of the marketing you're finding today? Is it's just too generic and not really focused on the messaging of the consumers?
So, I mean, to be fair to everybody who makes creatives like that I don't like, that's always been a thing. Like everybody knows the legend of like the local TV ads, where you're like, the local TV ads suck and they're all the same. Yep, they are, right? And it's kind of the same thing when we hit the digital space. Like when I converted the agency into a digital agency, when I started looking at just plumbers, I was like, all right, a lot of you guys are you're being seen in the right spots, you're doing a lot of the right things as far as media buying goes, but you're saying all the wrong things. And there's nothing unique, and there's nothing that is actually tuned for the person that you need to convert. And what we specialize in is residential, which is going to be the woman of the house, right? So that's the avatar. So I think what happened is you saw as people became more like digitally savvy and more digital dependent, as the market moved over there, the creative didn't like the ability to be creative did not move with it. And so because it was already kind of a byproduct of most like businesses, like they were just like, yeah, I don't want to be creative, because it takes courage to be creative, because you got to be unique, which means you got to do something nobody else is doing, which means you got to like push yourself into outside of your comfort zone. And so I think that with digital, you ran into this zone where you have brand awareness, lead gen, right? And so lead gen kind of took the lion's share of the attention, even of the business owners for a while, especially with plumbing, because it was so cheap. Because you could move your business onto Google, do some SEO, start ranking all right, and then also do paid search, and bam, leads are coming at you. But what are those? Those are things where you're discovered without the creative. Like those are basically a phone book. But how many businesses were built only solely on the back of phone book before Google? Not every one of them. Like there's a reason why TV and radio existed. There's a reason why like print existed, newspapers and things like that, because display advertising, guess what, it works. So what ended up happening is people leaned really heavy into SEO and really heavy into lead gen. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but they left brand awareness at the door. And then when more companies did it, the inventory got squished, right? You only have so much inventory, so only so many people wake up and need a plumber. And everybody was relying on getting the people who didn't have a plumber picked out. And so what happens is somebody wakes up and they're like, oh no, I need a plumber, and they go to Google. But that's not what everybody does. Some people are like, oh yeah, I have a plumber, it's this guy. That's the one I choose. They don't go to Google to look for a plumber, they go to Google to look for that guy. So I think people just, the market shifted on them, and now lead gen is extremely expensive in a lot of places. And so and the other biggest problem is then you're not influencing a market, you're not actually dealing with psychology, you're just dealing with okay, do I rank well? And I think that how many leads are you going to get a month is going to depend on market size, but how much of it is your market? Just about this much. Your market is this big, and you're only speaking to this many people each month. So what I like to focus on is how do we get you speaking to thousands of people every month, and then say something dumb on the internet because it's fun. So and that helps people get noticed. Right.
Tyler, I love that. I mean, you hit the nail on the head. There was this long period of time where, ROI, direct response, cost per acquisition was unheard of. You had major VC companies focusing on leveraging their dollars for radio, TV, billboards. They were all brand-based advertising. Then direct response hits. We get digital advertising, then give us a clear ROI, clear cost per lead, clear return on our investment, and everyone switches over into that pocket. But what happens when everyone's focused on direct response is free estimate, call today, and everything leaves us wanting to acquire the 3% of the customers that are actually looking to move forward with the service today. The 97% of consumers that aren't even problem aware. They're not solution aware. They're not in the position that they even know they need a plumber, right? They could be seeing something happening. They're hearing their pipes go off. They're like, do I need a roofer? What's going on with my house? Well, I don't even know where the problem lies. And you're hitting the nail on the head of what businesses today are really looking for. Even if you start talking to VC firms and higher end businesses that have been focused so heavily on branding for years now, they're now saying, well, we need to get a direct response for our advertising dollars. And all the small mom and pop shops that were only direct response are realizing that my customer retention is low. People aren't referring me. They're not developing a long-term pipeline because they didn't do it off the brand. They did it off a quick call to action. So I love that combination, right? Yeah, the humor combination to get them enticed, the fact that you're storytelling while still generating the leads, and then doing it underneath a niche that you've proven to be successful before. Let me ask you this. Obviously, you've gone through some trials and tribulations. What do you think was the biggest problem that you've faced in your business that you've created, and how has it changed your company today?
Bottlenecks. So like, here's the problem with creative work. When you really lean into the creative and when you're like, okay, cool, we need to up our game on creative for these plumbers. The bottleneck for a long time is me, because I'm the guy who's spearheading it. And so what does that mean? That means I go in to craft the ads, and then I have the designers sweeten them. But there's like this zone where it's like, all right, we need this many things to come out every day to add to our library, so that way we can pull them up. And what we run into is like a creative mind is different than a tactical mind. And so like trying to find the people who can sort of like match the tone and craft the message in a way where it hits, that is hard. It takes a different kind of person. And because everybody has a different like temperature gauge for humor and for interest, right? So what's really dumb to one person might be the funniest thing in the world to another, might be like the most offensive thing to another. And so which means we have to craft enough creative to tread those lines so the clients can choose. They can be like, okay, I like that one, I don't like that one, right? We do some custom work too, but like that's probably been one of the hardest things. That and sales is always like a thing where you start out and you're like, oh, okay, I got to hit up a new market. How do I do that? And then you just have to barrel against it until you figure it out. And we finally did. So
the operations is a huge factor, right? And I don't, so many business owners, especially ones that try to hire marketing companies, I don't think they're really understanding what the difficulty is of building a machine of a marketing agency, right? To have someone that, like, as you said, like if you're the sole owner, and I did the same thing when I started my company, I wrote the ads, made the creative, developed the landing page, I did all of it, right? And at the end of the day, your bandwidth becomes limited. And the real problem, in my opinion, is that when you're in that execution lane, your creative mind fails. And you are lean less on your creative. So it's just like, I got to get this stuff done. And you have very little time to look back and say, why did that work? How is that different? What can I do to improve this overall process and procedure? So yeah, love that. And I think a lot of business owners are unaware of what it really takes to build a marketing arm internally into their business, and an agency like yourself that can streamline that process while developing into a position of humor, which you hit the nail on the head. It's the hardest thing to do in the ads. I always praise the Harmon brothers, the original advertisers of the Squatty Potty and Purple Mattress and Dr. Squatch Soap for the humor that they put in their ads, because I think they're absolutely hilarious. But if you go to talk to the Harmon brothers today, to make a brand story video is $350,000. And nobody really understands why the cost is that high. It's because that $350,000 video is going to make you $6 to $20 million in revenue off the back end of it, with a positive ROI for indefinitely. So, crafting that message, let's dive a little bit deeper into that. Do you have a creative process that you go through, like a testing process or something that you do internally to be able to jog these creative juices to kind of get these ideas out? Or is it really just being in the industry for so long, you kind of understand where the psychology of the consumers are?
So going into plumbers, like saying, okay, cool, I'm going to lean into this. I was like, okay, is that really the group that I want to like spend my time with? Right. Like my brother's a plumber. That's what gave us the idea, is working with his company. But what you got to realize is that's not who you're crafting for. Who you're crafting for is their market. So when it clicked on my end that really the avatar was a mixture of my mom and my wife, I was like, okay, cool. I like to make them laugh. Like that's not bad. So what I do now is honestly, I'll workshop with, the many wives and like the many middle-aged women in my life that I can like workshop stuff with. But when it comes to the actual craft, man, I've been creative writing since I was 13. I'm 40. Like all of that was honing the craft, all of it. I've always been the guy to try and get somebody to giggle. And so that's what the ads are. Because, then you give them value, and value is value. Like it truly will like reciprocate back. Like, so the process of like sitting down and creating for me when I'm the one doing it, if not somebody else on my staff, because we try and like let other people get their ideas out, and then we bring them together and might see a seed here, and it becomes almost like a writer's room. And I actually have really wondered about making more of a writer's room mentality to this stuff. But for me, it all starts with a document, and it all starts with like, okay, cool. What is it we're trying to do? Are we trying to entice somebody into taking us up on an offer? Are we trying to build association? Are we trying to build familiarity, credibility? And we kind of have like these things that we know we need to do for a client. And so, it's like, okay, well, what baseline am I going to start with? And like one you mentioned before we started recording is, okay, familiarity and trust. Well, what do we say if we aren't leveraging a review or a testimonial? It's like, well, is rather than say like, the best plumbers in Denver, what if we say the only plumbers your mom loves to call? Right? Like we're trying to push that forward. And what that does is it's like, well, if your mom can trust us, you can too. Right? So another concept that we've had that we still need to realize is, hey, don't call dad. He's just going to make it worse. Call us instead. Right? Like the things that that the person who runs a house understands and identifies with because they either grew up with it or they live it. And another example is, plumbers are really bad at selling water heaters. Like they are horrible at it. Like, fine, the sales process are good. They're bad at marketing it. What they will do is they'll be like water heater installations, and then they will show a stinking water heater. My wife has never gone into our mechanical room to look at our water heater. Never, not once.
No idea what it looks like.
It doesn't fall over the sultry curves of a round water heater in the garage. Like that's not what happens. So why are you showing that? What my wife cares about is the hot bath that she can have after the kids are done doing their thing, or after she comes home after doing a bunch of stuff for work or whatever. Like that's what she wants. So sell the benefit.
Sell the dream.
Right? Yeah. So
anybody listening, I mean, he hit a huge marketing point right here. The fact that so many, I mean, starting off with understanding who your ideal customer profile really is, diving into the fact that like you said, it's your wife, it's your mom, it's that consumer base that's actually making the decision around the client that you're working for. So that's the first thing. The second is understanding how to communicate to them. I mean, you hit the nail on the head of they don't care what a hot water heater is or what it looks like. It's the value that it brings to their home. And hitting that messaging correctly. And what I'm hearing here, Tyler, which is really, really powerful, is the empathy that you have as the owner to understand your clients better and understand your clients' clients better, right? Where most of your clients probably haven't identified their ideal consumer profile. And when they walk into a conversation with you, you already know it. You already can sit down and say, I understand plumbers. I understand who you're working with. And if you think it's the man of the household, I'm sorry to tell you, you're wrong, and your messaging wrong, and your creative's wrong. You're not doing this correctly. Let me prove to you that we can do it right. And not only understanding that, but then bringing the humor into it is not only a beautiful thing to hear, because it's a hard thing to do. It's a very hard, like you said, you've been doing it since you were 13 years old. It's hard to bring in 20, 30 years of knowledge and education of oneself into any conversation of how do you do something. It's like, well, I've done it for 30 years. So a lot of it's coming from a real understanding of where this all is and a passion for it, a real passion for it. So
it's absolutely fun. Like it is a blast. So and back to the process, one thing is it's writing and rewriting and rewriting and rewriting and tweaking and adjusting. Like it starts with a headline, but then sometimes it might be a story that becomes a headline, or first you start the headline, then you tell the story in like a paragraph. Like it's a constant like massaging of things. So
And while
It's-
everyone else is just pumping it into ChatGPT, you can copy and paste it. Tyler's actually here doing the work to make sure it understands.
So I think AI has a place. What's interesting is I can pump, a bunch of my favorite headlines into ChatGPT and be like, okay, now give me headlines like this, around this service or whatever, and that can help. But I think ChatGPT is great at ideation, great at like helping get you to a certain point, but then you got to take it to the finish line. On top of that, you have to understand why it works. Like, I've gotten crap out of ChatGPT, but I can recognize it as crap, hopefully. So, like, you can't rely on it too much. You still have to be the curator of taste with anything, because you're responsible for it at the end of the day. So
what you put out there, your physical attribute of what you put out there is going to be what people identify you as. So,
yeah.
And it's the same thing. Unfortunately, the AI is great for ideas. It's great for fast outputs, but it's going to be the same output for you. Not be a small differentiation depending on the prompt, but a small differentiation is not going to create the separation you did in the beginning of this call of, hey, come in for your free plumber consultation, compared to, hey, before you ever have a problem in your house and before you call your husband, make sure you call us to make sure that we can get the problem fixed. And that resonation point of where the consumer really lives is where ChatGPT or any AI prompts are a few years of actually getting to be totally honest.
Yeah, I don't know.
So
I have fun throwing spaghetti at the wall with ChatGPT, but then I have to walk back.
It's funny. I've been using Jasper 5 years prior to OpenAI.
Oh, yeah.
Released, right? So we've been using, in the marketing world, we've been using this stuff for a while. It's still the same problem I had 10 years ago that we have today, is that I can get the best direct response prompts and I can get a benefit statement and a call out, a benefit statement, and then a call to action at the end from it. But does it ever develop any emotional tie back to the consumer? And that's what you're really hitting at, is how create the emotion.
Yeah. Oh, you got your auto responses on.
I was about to say that should have been a thumbs up, because you're definitely hitting the right concept. I got to ask though, my question now leans in. You're at the forefront of what I believe is the next level of marketing, which is understanding the tools, the services, understanding the consumer profile, and then crafting messaging and offers and creative that resonates with a deeper level of empathy while recognizing the consumer. Where do you think your industry goes in the next 5 to 10 years? Do you believe that companies like Home Advisor and Angie's List that are lead generators are going to fade away and you'll see more of an internal understanding of how to generate your own leads? Or do you find that there's going to be a differentiation of how plumbers actually develop interest? Where do you see the next 5 to 10 years in your industry?
Okay. Of course, I've thought about this a lot. And to some degree, it's all theory. But are lead generators going to go away? No. Because you still have the people who like are recently in a market. They've never called a plumber before. They just bought a home and they are going like, who do I call? And they just hit up a thing. They get a list and they pick hopefully your company on the list. That's the gamble you're playing. That's why it's so expensive, right? Everybody else is there too. So what I think will happen is, as the internet, it's going to go through stages. But I think what we're seeing is a sea change. Enough people are now internet first, where everybody's doing it. So therefore the prices have risen and things have gotten harder and harder. And then you got the tech companies squeezing more and more, trying to get their dime as well. That's just natural. So I think that, I got delivered a phone book in the mail the other day. They still exist. So they will, all these things will continue to exist. They might gobble up and consolidate a little bit here and there, but those are going to always be a thing. You just don't want to depend on them, because then you're putting all of your eggs in their baskets. But what I think is going to happen in the marketing space from the agency side, is I think that the tech is now starting to get to the point where it's going to be a little bit less about the tactics, because the tech's going to handle the tactic for you, or clicking the right things and understanding the platform quite as much. So I think the convolutions that we've seen on platforms are going to become less of an issue. They're not going to go away. And then it's going to be more on, is my creative actually doing what I need it to do? Which is awesome for guys like me who love dealing with creative. It's like, okay, well, what's our watch time inside of this 30-second video, and things like that. Analyzing, okay, how are we crafting this? How are we actually bringing the customer along a journey, not just in an individual piece, but all the way forward. And everything needs to be bolstered with some form of messaging, right? So then what the problem that we have is everybody's saying the same thing. And so you're just part of noise. And so I think as we see the shift with like Facebook and Google, especially using more and more automation inside of their own system, and let's face it, they're pulling control away from media buyers. So as that happens, we have to trust their platforms, which means our messaging becomes a little bit, like quite a bit more.
Becomes everything.
It becomes, it's the thing that we get graded on.
As a guy that was sitting with Meta last week in a call where they were questioning us and our agency, I can tell you right now, Tyler's hitting the nail on the head. It is the evolution of all marketing. It is the messaging and it is the creative. Do you believe that the AI is going to be able to bring in the funny and the empathy and those factors? Or do you see it as more companies are going to need to understand they need to have this value in their business and try to pull it out of either themselves or one of their employees?
It's very different. So the problem with AI is it's not a self-fulfilling folding in on itself all the time, right? Like it is still dictated by human input. And I think that it's going to always be a bit delayed to some degree, right? That gap's going to get narrower and narrower. And who knows, like I might eat crow and be like, all right, yeah, it writes just as well as I want it to now. But overall, I think what you'll have people training AI models to do what they want to do, but it's always going to take that level of work as you get in there. I don't foresee like Facebook and Instagram, or Meta and Google. I don't see their own AI platform reaching kind of the heights that humanity can with its own curated versions of it over here. So I'm not really worried about like, oh no, I'm going to be out of a job. Everybody needs eyeballs eventually. And I don't think it's ever going to reach the point where extra attention is going to make it so it doesn't work as well. Right. So, which means, but I'm going to have to learn new skills. My crew will have to. Every marketer on the planet is constantly in the game of evolving. And so it's just, in the grand scheme of things, I think the way that we craft the creative, the way that we deal with how the platforms interact with it, also crafts it. Like I used to write 30-second ads that I had people captive for, right? Where I could open a line to set up a punchline, and now I can't. I got 5 seconds, right? Mm-hmm. So I've had to adopt my approach to how to make an ad for wherever it's going to run, because that's what you do. So I see that evolution continuing to happen, but I think it will always take a human hand sort of guiding the software.
I think Tyler's very humble about how good he is at his business, because I'm sitting here listening. Again, we talk to a lot of business owners. We talk to a lot of agency owners. We do these podcasts. If you guys have heard the ones before, you can hear that some of the best say the same thing. They say the level of, one, understanding of the consumer profile and the emotions behind them, and then two, the sweat equity, how much effort it really takes to do some of these things, right? It's not as simple as, let me just build a business and it'll be successful, especially not in today's day and age with the amount of competition that's happening across the board. So Tyler, absolutely awesome. If there was somebody that was looking to start a plumbing business, or say they just started the plumbing business, and you had to give them 3 pieces of advice in the marketing field to set them off on a good course, what would you give them?
Okay. Understand that you are going to have different phases in your business where you activate different marketing things. Not every solution needs to be activated in the beginning. First thing you got to do is get found for your name and who you are. Make sure you are searchable, Googleable, basically. Then you need to work in on basic lead gen, like things that don't cost an arm and a leg and aren't going to sink your business. And things that you can actually turn into profit. But as soon as you start talking to your service area by thousands of people and you're hitting them once a day with a message that is catchy and interesting, that's how you start getting more customers, and that's how you grow interest and trust inside of the market. And that's how you start influencing the psychology of the market. The longer you delay that, the smaller your business is going to stay for a long time. Lead gen talks to this much. Mass communication talks to this much, and you have to influence psychology of thousands of people to build a big business.
Oh, that's beautiful, Tyler. I love that. One last bonus question. So this is one of my favorite questions. You ever read the book or heard about the book Atlas Shrugged?
Yes, I have. I have not read it though.
It's super long. I wouldn't read it. I watched a video on it. It's thick. It's real thick, but the concept's incredible, right? So the concept, for those of you that don't know, the book Atlas Shrugged talks about what if every business owner, what if every decision maker in the world that puts all this stress on their shoulders and decides that they're, instead of going to work to 9 to 5, I'm going to build a company. I'm going to put this effort. What if they just shrugged it all off? What if they just said, nope, I'm not going to do it anymore? And we saw all the businesses fade away. If that happened today, Tyler, what would be the first business that you would start tomorrow?
Oh man, if all the businesses faded away, man, you did it to me. I'm like, oh crap, that's in the Stone Age. Man, you know what? I had a hotelier tell me the reason why he went into hotels is because everybody needs a place to lay their head at night. So I would probably go into something inside of hospitality because that's what people are going to need fulfilled first.
I love that. I love that. Yeah,
So,
I mean, I've heard gyms, I've heard coffee, I've heard, a lot of people focus, and this is just another test of Tyler's empathy for his clients and for the people that he worked with. Most of the people that answer that question, Tyler, to be totally honest, is like, well, I need my coffee, so I need a coffee shop. Well, I need to work out, so I need the gym open, right? The first thing you said was people are going to need a place to lay their head, and I want to be able to give that to them and support them. I absolutely love that, Tyler. Tyler, tell the people where they can find you. Tell us a little bit more, if you want to dive a little bit more into your website, your services, if you have any offers or anything of that nature. But if someone's listening to this podcast and they want to work with you, how do they find you? How do they connect with you?
Easiest place is to go to tylerwilliams.net. That's where my website is for my personal brand. If you want to scope out more about the agency, it is mammoth4plumbers.com. And I'm always willing to talk to people on marketing. They can schedule a consult and like no need to buy anything. If they're a plumber, I'll sit down and I'll chat with them and be like, this is the direction that I think you need to go, and take it or leave it from there. So yeah, that's a big thing. I enter marketing with like, all right, cool. Everybody can help push everyone forward. So that's why these chats are so much fun. So appreciate the time.
Tyler, that's awesome, man. Awesome. Tyler Williams, absolutely incredible. If you're looking for somebody, especially if you're a plumber and you're looking for support and growing your business, make sure you reach out to him. Thank you again for your time, Tyler. It was excellent. And everyone listening, appreciate your time. Have a good one. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe.